welcome back to Cambridge Inside Out. I'm Judy Nathans.
And I'm Robert Winters.
And I'm very grateful to be in this nice air-cooled studio, even though it's using up whatever.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the more miserable days.
Yep.
Just getting through
Yep.
the hot and humid nights. It was.
Well, you don't believe in AC? You one of those that won't have one in your house?
You know, I don't do religion, so it's not a matter
Well,
of believing or not believing.
My ex is like that. He just can't stand it. He says,
Yeah.
I want that. I don't want that dark. He's crazy, but I think his wife won out.
Yeah,
He said, I got the noisiest one I could. So
Yeah, I mean, I always feel a little uncomfortable in an air-conditioned room sleeping because I feel like I've been thrown into a refrigerator box.
But you put it on power saver. Mine only goes on,
Yeah,
and then I have
I
a
know.
fan too. I could not sleep at all if I didn't. I don't know how you do it. Anyway,
I'm a walking miracle.
well, you're crazy.
What can I say?
You're
Yeah.
not.
So,
So we were gonna. You were talking about the planning board.
yeah. So, and
St.
actually,
James
let me
Yeah.
at the risk of being a little controversial about this.
You be controversial?
Well, let's say sometimes I try and
Yeah.
steer away from it all,
Yeah,
but
but why not?
somebody was saying, well, why didn't this was talking about this the St. James project?
Which is
up in
people
Porter
know it's
Square.
right past. It's in Porter Square where the car wash is on the right.
The
and
car
there's a
wash is
church
actually
on
part
Beach
of the
Street.
property that was going to
Right.
be turned into the housing as
Right.
well as some of the
And
church
it's
property.
St. James owns, and they were trying to.
Yeah, so it's
improve
sort of a
theirs. Right.
it's basically the lot where the car wash was, as well as a little piece of the St. James. So
Right.
St. James would benefit. I think most everybody would benefit,
yeah.
but some people may not like the fact that cars may exit the garage on one street or
Or that
another.
there are cars.
Yeah, but so somebody said, well, maybe they should have settled, with the neighbors, and somebody said, oh, there was no settlement, and then somebody said, oh, yes, there was. I have no
Oh,
idea what is
Oh,
true.
so that's what it was?
Yeah, but the thing is that this whole business about doing a quote settlement with particular litigants is a very, very dicey subject in
Yeah.
Cambridge, and I could show you some people who get very angry at the very thought of it. One example of this, I'll give you two examples about why that's a really, really bad place to go. One is I think it was at 200 Broadway. There was an entity called NBC, or Neighbors for a Better Community. Basically, as part of a settlement there was a zoning petition. I think it was called the Carroll petition. So they said, okay, we'll back off from the petition. They made a settlement. So a certain amount of money from the person who was developing the property was put into a fund, and then a group of individuals was put in charge of this fund. They called themselves Neighbors for a Better Community.
So they dealt
NBC.
directly with the neighbors and they didn't have to deal with the city because
Right.
it was a private
So then
deal.
it was an understanding then that
Oh.
this NBC group was supposed to use it. They actually got a little piece of property,
Wow.
and they had a kitty, some dollars to work with.
Huh.
And one individual, and I'm not going to name the names
No,
now, but one
don't do that,
individual and the family of the individual ended up having control over this fund
That's crazy.
and the property, and they paid themselves as executive
Oh,
directors
Dear.
to do this, and it was only finally resolved when, in fact, after some time, the property got sold with conditions and Sean Hope redeveloped it as a housing. It's right down there on that property.
Yeah.
So that opened maybe within the past year.
And that's all allowed, that kind of
Right.
situation.
So that was like a 20, well, I don't know about 20, but at least a 15-year nonsense of a complete misappropriation of everything. It was not how any public process should ever work, right? And another one was, you see, now the developer of the St. James project is Oak Tree Development. Some years ago, I think it was like either late 90s or around the year 2000, I couldn't say for sure, there was it just happened to be the same people who were opposed to the development of a housing development in Elway, directly across from the LFT
Same
station.
people that are the St. James complainers?
Some of them are
Okay.
exactly the same
All right.
people.
So they were
And-
opposed to a development.
Right, and I'm going to say, I will name one name here, which is not of one of the bad guys, but one of the good guys. So one of the principals of Oak Tree is a woman named Gwen Noyes. And Gwen was and is a big proponent of transit-oriented development. And she was so before it was fashionable. even when Cambridge was putting together the toward a sustainable Cambridge, the growth policy document, which dates back to I think about 1993, she was
Wow.
on the committee promoting that.
Wow.
And she married Art Klipfeld, who was a developer, and they actually built co-housing projects.
Oh, that's what, of course.
Right?
Which is up in.
Was it
in
Cornerstone?
Porter Square. Yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they live in it.
Yeah,
They actually
right.
live in co-housing. These are not
Yeah.
like going out to the
It's not-
suburbs
it's not
in Lexington.
cheap, but it's
No,
nice.
it's not.
No, you're
Co-housing's
right.
not cheap,
No.
but the thing is it's
But they
an
stayed
interesting
and they
model.
built something, because
They
there's,
stayed
we have
there 'cause
two
they
in
really
Cambridge,
believe in
actually.
it, right?
Yeah.
So they wanted to do the same thing with transit-oriented development and building housing, residential housing in Porter Square. So, but anyway, what happened with Alewife was that there were people just trying to block that project, and then unfortunately, just when you thought it was going to move forward, they found that there had been from a previous use there. I think it was something, I could have this a little wrong. It was like some fuel oil or something was found on the property.
That whole area is
So
questionable.
then next thing you're like, oh boy, yet another grounds for lawsuits.
Oh, right.
So they said, look, I tell you what. I
Who
think,
said that, Oak Tree?
yeah, she was active with the restoration of Blair Pond, so that she offered, and she was actually sat on the Affordable Housing Trust.
Yeah.
So offered to put in $60,000 to the Affordable Housing Trust, and $135,000, I believe it was the number, toward the Mystic River Watershed Association, basically for so if there's
As mitigation.
yeah, basically said it's an active, sort of a
Yeah.
good faith
She
gesture.
didn't have to, but she's.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, and anyway, so in the end, I think I'm not very sure of the chronology here, but what happened was that apparently was unacceptable.
Unacceptable?
And there was, so they were still getting hit with these lawsuits. So they filed what they call a SLAP suit. SLAP suit is literally is a way of saying this was
Yeah.
somebody's filing lawsuits pretty much to just harass us.
Right.
Well, okay, you do that, then that's like completely putting gasoline on the fire.
Yep.
And then the only way they got out of this dilemma was basically to take the $195,000 total and basically assign it to 13 individuals who I will not name, who would basically
Same deal
control
like that
the
had happened in the other
$195,000.
Wow.
So it wasn't being given to the city. It didn't go to the Affordable Housing Trust.
But
It
why,
didn't go to
why
the
did
Mystic
they want
River
it to go
Watershed.
to individuals rather than to
Because
the good
that's the way to get them to back off of their lawsuits.
You mean it went to the individuals that were complaining?
Yes, and
What?
and people were irate about
I
it.
thought that should be illegal. It's like, that sounds like, what do you call it, payola, something.
The city didn't initiate the lawsuit. It was individuals who initiated the lawsuit. Basically, they took a settlement and then they used that money to
And what
file
did they-
further lawsuits in the future
What?
years elsewhere.
So, you mean,
Yeah, no,
but who
it's
controlled that money? Was it,
the 13 individuals in theory, all right? But there were. Let's not go
is
too
the
much
money,
down this
is
road.
the money still around?
No, it's all. I think it was.
Who gets the
I
money?
think it was all spent at some point. They had a requirement to give some annual tallying about it, and I don't know how it all got resolved. I eventually sort of lost interest in it.
But what I don't get is when you settle with individuals, why are you giving them money to pay them off or to have them use it for some other purpose? I don't get
There was
it.
an understanding that the money was supposed to be used for housing and environmental purposes.
But that's what the original thing was for
Right. So why wouldn't it simply go to
Oh,
the places where
yeah.
it was guaranteed to go to affordable housing?
So did the thing ever get built? Whatever that
Yes,
was?
it got built and it's
Where is
there.
it?
Oh, it's right across the street from the LRT station.
Oh, is
But
it
the
one
thing
of those
is
tall
that
buildings?
they simply couldn't afford the delay.
So you pay
you know,
people off.
time is money.
Seems to me that
Right.
shouldn't be allowed anymore.
I don't think it should be allowed, but I don't know
You
that.
think it still is? Because I don't hear
I-
of those deals anymore.
You know,
Do you?
well, I think it's because
You
you
have
know,
inclusionary zoning.
if you
now? I don't know.
if you try to do a payoff like that today, then other property owners, business owners will be again irate because they say you're setting a horrible precedent.
But it seems to me there should be something legally about that you cannot do that. But I guess if it's
You
a
know,
private development, I don't know.
Maybe so. All right.
Sounds
But
bad.
so anyway, there is a problem though. Let's be clear about when you have a project that people want to do, their financing is in place. Delay is costly, so sometimes people just do delay just for the sake of doing delay. Right?
Well, I hope that
It's a
doesn't
dreadful
happen
thing.
with this St. James thing.
I don't think it will. I think the planning board members
But wait,
are.
it's the same principles. It's Gwen Noyes.
Yeah,
She's, oh,
yeah,
okay.
and Oak Tree Development. So the thing is the the planning board, I think, they issued permits, like special permits at the time. This was like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And now they've filed for an extension because otherwise the permits could expire.
Right.
So it's a completely reasonable request, and considering the fact that the sole reason for the delay was the litigation, it would be just ridiculous to not grant the
You
extension.
can't hold these hostage to a few.
I feel the same way, and listen, I could maybe one day I'll be a person who's trying to stop something, and I'll be bothered. But the thing is once it's adjudicated, once it's settled, you just got to live with it.
You have to look at it's a church that wants to remain
involved
in the community. What is wrong?
I know.
It's been a blight, that car wash thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there'd be a lot less cars going out of there than went into a car wash when it was operating, right? I don't know.
I don't know.
A car wash, the whole business is having cars move
but
in and
the car
out.
wash was all off of Mass Ave, so.
Oh,
so I think
please.
will be either off of Beach Street
People
or the
aren't
back
even
street or
buying
something.
cars anymore, so.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you wanted to renegotiate anything with St. James, you might actually say, well, the new standard is we don't even require so much parking, so.
Well, that's true. There could be negotiation.
Put in another few
I have
units
no
of
idea how
housing,
many.
But listen, if they want to do
parking
that on their own, that's great.
Yeah.
But honestly, a deal's a deal. Just live with the deal.
Hopefully, they'll do the right thing.
Now, there's another one here having to do with the EMF building.
Okay, and that's news to me. Where did you hear about
so
this?
let's scroll down here. I'll sort of show some pictures here. So.
Is this been brought by
all right, so,
the individuals? Yeah.
All right, so we've actually talked on this program before about the EMF building on Brookline Street, which was housing a lot of musicians primarily, artists and musicians, but I think it was primarily musicians.
Yes.
There was recording studios in there, various things, but it's really it's a use that's existed maybe the last 10 to 12 years.
At least.
Right. But then in the last couple of years, the property was sold. It had been on the market for a long time, and it finally got sold.
2 years or so, yeah.
And it was Trinity Properties or an offshoot of Trinity Properties called Ledgemore LLC or something like that, whose principal owner is John DiGiovanni, who's
So that was 2 years ago, I think they bought it.
that's about right.
because they've had 2 years.
So it's turned into a big controversy, right?
They gave them notice.
They gave notice. The city intervened, got a little bit of a
extended about a
delay,
month,
whatever, But there's all sorts of crap going on
Let's
now.
just show where it is.
Yeah. So anyway, for those who've never actually seen
It's on
it,
Brookline
you should.
Street.
Probably the single most distinctive thing
This
is
is
the big
approaching
orange
going
sign
up Brookline
towards Central Square.
This is sort of in the
looking,
front of it,
looking
although
straight
this
at the front entrance.
right. This is more the common.
And then over on
one here.
on the left side, as you face it, there's what used to actually be a gas station. I think they did general
talking about
welding
in here?
at one point. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So that was actually add-on. It was actually a separate.
You're right. I think I
parcel.
took my car there
It's a
once.
separate
years
address.
ago. Yeah.
My old VW Beetle, I actually had the front.
Yeah, you're
front
right. It was a
axle,
car
the,
repair type thing. Yeah.
the towers that held the shock absorbers.
So EMF is
it
basically this
rusted out.
building then.
They welded my old Beetle
Wait,
there.
but is this now part of EMF?
Yeah, it's all part of it now.
Oh.
So I
okay.
forget the exact address, but the thing is that's the EMF building. By the way, the picture on the right there is
That's Central Square.
that's the graffiti.
Yes.
That graffiti's been up there for at least a decade, probably a lot longer.
What does it say? I thought it was Sims,
It's
but it isn't. It's
54 and 5. You'll find that same tag along the Mass Pike out in Framingham.
Do you know, all this time I thought it said Sims, which used to be a department
Yeah, it was like a clothing store.
Yeah, that's so funny, but that's ugly. That should be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I think there was some move from the Central Square Business Association. They got
There's something
permission
there, yeah.
to have some people go up there on ropes
Because that's
and
the same owner
and
of
paint
the
something
Blockbuster
spectacular
building,
on that.
right?
Yes, that's also Morris Negro's property. So anyway, so speaking of kind of problematic properties.
So somebody's requesting landmark status for that?
Yeah, so
Give me a break.
I think
Come
it's a
on.
little silly, and I don't think it's going to
It's
go
not
anywhere.
even that.
But
Is it that
it's-
old?
It's a 1920s era building.
I'd say the sign is nice.
Right.
You could landmark that EMS sign.
Right.
And
Well, I
then just
think all
move
you
it
can really
somewhere.
landmark is the exterior anyway.
Well, true.
You
right.
can shell out a
That's
building
true.
in the
You're
interior.
right.
But anyway, the eventually, I think some of the tenants were holding on. They basically somebody would hold on the fort, so people need to go out shopping. They'd come back in, let somebody in.
Is there anybody there still?
I think the latest word is that the last of the tenants are out of there.
So,
John DiGiovanni and his company has not yet stated what the future plans of the
Right.
building are.
right.
I mean, I'm going to guess it would probably be some sort of housing because that's kind of what people are doing these days.
Yeah, but it's
And
gonna
there's a
be-
lot of demand
yeah,
for it.
I know.
So I don't know, right?
He did create some kind of studio rental type place in Medford, but that
Yes,
was early on.
exactly,
And he sort of saw that as a,
So,
you know, but-
so in sort of classic Cambridge style, so you try and, you bring in City Hall, maybe you should, well, they haven't filed a zoning petition yet, so I guess maybe that'll happen, who knows?
you mean people that want to keep it as a,
Yeah, but, honestly, it's a fool's
well,
errand.
there is
to be
the
doing
arts
that.
overlay thing that's gonna
Which
go
is
before
more
the
Central Square, and
ordinance.
it's not so
And it
clear that
doesn't
would
actually
extend
cover
that
this,
far
I think
down.
they said that.
Right,
yeah.
so the thing is that if EMF did anything,
Yeah.
it will be that it spurred a little bit of a movement now
Mm.
to maybe create a Central Square Arts Overlay District. What
Right.
exactly that means,
Right.
and whether that can deliver affordable space for
Right.
musicians and recording
Right.
studios to happen, I don't know.
It's not happening right this second, but
not happening
it's
this
gonna
second.
go to ordinance, or it's not even ready for that?
Uh,
They've had one committee meeting about it.
Yeah,
I don't
I mean, they're just talking about it.
Yeah.
The mayor has appointed
Oh,
a
that's
mayor's
right, a
arts task force
Which I don't know if
chaired.
that's fully appointed yet, but,
No, it's not. They're actually seeking members. If you're interested, apply. Contact the
Okay.
mayor's office.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not a city manager appointed board. It's actually a mayor's
it's the
initiative.
mayor, and I think Alana Mullen
Alana Mallon is the chair.
is the chair.
All right. So if you're really hot to trot in this topic,
Yeah.
get your ass down to
Yeah.
the mayor's office and
Right.
beyond that. So that's I personally see this as an outgrowth of the EMF thing. Now, yeah, it was sort of happening independently as
Can
well.
I ask
but-
you something? I'm looking at the picture. Who owns this plot of land next to it?
All right. So the property
That's curious
that
to
that
me.
green space in
Yeah,
front of
right
EMF
there,
is owned
yeah.
by the city of Cambridge.
What?
And in fact, it abuts if you go.
You're kidding.
If you wrap around behind it,
Yeah?
it actually goes into that big open space. Which
I
is
don't
a,
get it.
sort
So
of
why,
a soccer
so
field,
what,
dog space.
isn't that give them a little leverage about something?
Well, maybe, yeah.
So they could sell that plot of land to him if they
Maybe.
wanted to.
Honestly, in this particular controversy, I don't think anybody's going to sell them that.
Well, they certainly haven't done
unless-
anything with it for a
Unless
long
they can
time.
leverage affordable housing or something like that. So
Yeah,
we'll
I mean, it's
see.
not that big, but it's sizable. I've gone by that for years.
yeah,
and
I
not known
actually
who
I
owned it.
asked John if he's.
Didn't know that. Wow.
Yes, I speak with John DiGiovanni.
Oh,
hate me.
Robert, you speak with
Love
everybody.
me, hate me, but you
They're
know.
not watching.
When he
it,
comes
these
back
people
on,
that hate you.
when he comes back from vacation, I want to actually ask him directly. I said, "So what are we going to do here, right?"
Yeah.
But anyway, so 16 people, one of whom was Peter Valentine, signed a petition asking for landmarking of the EMF building.
So that, it's not a zoning petition.
Not a zoning petition;
What
it's a
is-
landmarking petition, which would basically then give the historical commission a certain amount of say-so on.
So they then have to then
maintaining the shell.
review it.
Right, and I think, again, I'm not a mind reader, but I imagine the idea here was that the petitioner said if we constrain the property owner to maintain the shell of the building just as it is, then he will have no choice somehow but to maintain a use.
You know, I'm looking at
similar
this
to-
thing and I don't
That ain't
see it
happening.
at all. It's had like additions to
Right.
it. It's not even.
Well, yeah, if you go down to the calendar
Ah.
section here,
got
which is
map-
on this very page, or it's
Oh,
actually on
yeah.
the Civic Journal page,
Yeah.
there's a link to there's a recommendations from the Historical Commission staff about this.
Oh, there
The
is.
Historical
right
Commission
here.
is
Where
meeting
is it?
this Thursday night,
Oh.
August 9th, I think, to
Oh.
take up the issue of whether they should pursue a landmarking study for this.
So is that a public meeting?
It is a public meeting.
Where
Now-
is that on your page?
Yeah, there's actually a link at the very, very end, but and actually it's
Oh, at the very.
no, not the Civic Journal page, but on the very
On
edge of this one, just
okay,
for this
civic
page here.
calendar here.
Yeah, you go all the way down. So the thing is that I got the the Cambridge
Oh.
Historical Commission is one of
Yeah.
my favorite entities. When you ask them to look into something, they do these wonderful research projects. And if you go down in there, actually, there will be something for this one.
What are we looking at?
Right, up, under the Cambridge Historical Commission,
Further up.
a little bit.
Oh, right here.
yeah,
Oh, here.
all right.
Petition of registered.
Not the
voters.
petition, but the staff memo, okay? So just to sort of, just give a little itsy bitsy little taste, this is why
Okay.
I love our Cambridge Historical Commission. So they come up with the report. So let's just sort of scroll down.
It's interesting
here
they're calling it 116 Brooklyn. I thought it was 125.
Yeah. So there's a picture for this actually off of Google,
Oh, it's 110.
right? And it basically gives the whole narrative, shows you
Yeah.
the thing here. But one of the things that's
I'll
really
do it.
really great about this, and again, it's showing different shots.
Oh, that's the different. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
different views of the property.
Should I
You
keep
can kind of
going?
see the bulk of it back there.
Yeah.
And then it shows some of the history. I didn't know about this.
Oh,
that
look
this
at
was.
this. 1934.
Oh yeah. So you can read all about some of the history of the property and its use as it was like a home goods store for
Yeah.
electronics type of thing.
They should
but
have a nice plaque there. That's
Right.
what they should have.
Yeah, maybe so, right? But this is what I really like about the Historical Commission.
Yeah, they
They'll
really
actually
look at it.
research it. But
Yeah.
I think in the end they said, look, in the end this is not a particularly
So they've already
significant
made
building.
some judgment about
Yeah,
this?
so this is actually what
Oh,
the
this
place
now
looked like
this is
once
interesting.
upon a time. When it was selling
Yeah, does it say
appliances
when
and
that
radios
is?
and
Before
such.
the 1950 edition. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's kind of attractive, but they basically
It
ruined
did-
it with all
most
the
of the glass.
and all the glass is
the
gone.
glass bin,
You're
most
right.
of it bricked
Bricked
over.
over, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not
So
historic
it's-
anymore.
No, it's largely been pretty
Yeah.
much shot, right? But the thing is that so the Historical Commission then actually comes back with
That was when I was born.
there you go.
Don't mention it, but look at that.
There we go. Good thing we turned
Wow.
away from that.
I
thing,
know,
right?
you can't tell.
Yay.
You can't know.
Right, but
All
the Historical Commission basically is
Yeah.
saying that, well, look, this has an interesting social history. The commission hasn't voted yet. They will maybe vote on Thursday whether this is deserving of a landmark study.
Oh,
But I would somehow be
please,
shocked
no.
if, in fact, they came
They
back
have
with
so
any
much more to do.
recommendation to actually
Yeah.
landmark this. So
I think there should be some kind of something noting it
Right.
as part of a tour or something.
yeah, I also think this is a bit of a fool's errand at this point because first off, the property has been evacuated now anyway.
Yeah.
And so this is not really the place people should be looking for accommodating the artist musician community,
No.
right? To whatever degree you can do it in Cambridge, maybe they could. I was dreaming about this today. I said, there are these curious new models for the way they do like work bar, and there's another place is it called Workspace or something, where it's like shared space where you sort of become like almost like a collective. And you can do that. There's probably a way of using either in a new building or an existing building.
There might be places like that already.
Right.
Is that makerspaces, you think, or
Things like
artist
that,
asylum?
Yeah. So I really think that
And
instead of
some of
chasing this wild goose,
Yeah.
the petitioners and maybe others should
Yeah.
work cooperatively with this mayor's task force on the Arts Overlay District.
To come up with some other solutions
And-
for artists.
And if you can find a benefactor, somebody with some pockets,
Yeah.
who can basically, wouldn't mind putting a little bit of money into something. Hopefully they wouldn't lose their shirt on it, but where they might actually be able to just sort of own the property and actually have a kind of a shared
Yeah.
artist, musician space, where you can actually have a recording studio that many people plug into
Yeah.
and do that. There are places, basement spaces, there are some big Central Square basements, for example, that are still there.
Yeah.
Actually, the one that Nadim Mazen had is still there. I don't know what's in there now, but the thing is, there are spaces, and maybe it's unaffordable, and maybe you can't make this work. But honestly, that's really the avenue that I think
Yeah.
people ought to be pursuing rather than
Well,
trying to
maybe
do this.
some of those retail
landmarking.
spaces that we're talking
Yeah.
about could be artist
Yeah,
studios.
the landmarking
You know?
attempt here almost seems as an act of
Yeah.
vengeance, quite honestly. And I don't really think the Historical Commission should be playing a party to that. So
Wouldn't it be great though, really, when you think about it, if you could just make, maybe not I don't know, something for, that was mainly musicians. It wasn't like working,
maybe I'm just an
painter.
eternal optimist, but I just sort of think there are ways to make something good happen.
No, I think it's all
That's
possible.
it.
Just-
Right.
I don't
By the
know.
way, one last little thing, just, we only have a few minutes here, but we talked a lot last week about this Nakagawa Brown petition about citywide rezoning,
That was
climate change, yada, yada,
the
yada.
chunk of the
Right.
summer meeting.
So there was this chance that somebody was going to file for reconsideration, right?
Oh.
And which would actually keep it alive.
Until
would,
the next council
right.
meeting.
And but it turned out the only person who did file, somebody did file for reconsideration, was Quentin Zondervan.
Yeah.
But here's the deal, and again, just I'm being a little goofy here, don't mind me, but Robert's Rules of Order, not this Robert, that Robert, right?
Last name.
General Robert, basically says that you can file reconsideration, but only if you were voted on the prevailing side of a vote, not the defeated side of a vote.
Oh, interesting.
And Quentin Zondervan had voted in favor of passing to the second reason, which was the losing side.
Yeah.
So he was not eligible to file.
Interesting.
And nobody else filed reconsideration, so the matter's done.
And he was told that, or he knows that?
Yes, he knows that. He knows that. This is actually one of those sort of strategery things where, in fact, sometimes a person in Congress will actually vote in favor of something they oppose, just leave themselves open the option of filing reconsideration of the vote, so give them time to sort of lobby others to come around to their way of thinking. So, anyway, that's not how it played out.
So there's a lot of things going on. You should go to Robert's civic calendar page. There's meetings. There's the old time baseball.
That's
on
next week on
16th.
Thursday.
Yeah, well, we can mention that again.
Right. Actually, next Wednesday, August 15th, the Envision Cambridge Advisory Committee is having their next round. I'm on that, so that's sort of a fun thing to happen.
What is this? Wait, August 13th, there's a city
The City Ordinance Committee to discuss it.
Technology
There's a proposed surveillance ordinance, and I think there's some language in place to do it. So, and I think they managed to, with the city solicitors and the proponents and the ACLU folks, they managed to hammer out something everybody could live with. Which basically, some people had concern that the police were going to be spying in on everybody, but everybody wanted to at least acknowledge that there are going to be some circumstances where you want the police to be able to do certain things, and you don't want to tie their hands.
Okay.
There's also some legal facts.
Also, if you haven't
under the
registered
charter.
to vote, and you want to vote in the September 4th primary, do it by August 15th.
That's it. That's right.
And
September 4th is the primary. It's coming up
Rewatch
quick.
the Capuano-Presley debate that was on today at WBUR. It's all over their Facebook
we go.
page and everything.
Alrighty. See you next
Bye-bye.
week.